Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi, and this evening I want to talk to you all a little bit about my thoughts on Destruction's current state heading into pretty soon War Within Alpha and the current problem, or I guess problems, with Destruction Warlock in hopes of maybe some changes coming in 11.0. Now, it's been gaining a bit of popularity over the past few weeks in Mythic Plus and rating, but I think there's still a lot of problems, a handful of problems when it comes to its talent tree, its toolkit, its damage, all that. So I want to highlight them in hopes of maybe some things coming in 11.0 and, well, I guess all of that. Now, when it comes to Destruction, there's a handful of things I want to hit on that are sort of like, I guess, baseline toolkit-ish, and some things, talent-wise, I think this probably should change. One of the biggest things that I think needs to change is the actual initial pathing of the Warlock class tree. So let's say, for example, if I back out like all these points here, if I take away every single point and start building a tree from scratch, this used to be easier to do actually, but either way, we'll pull all these out. One of the big things here is that, and I've seen some other classes like this in the past, they've actually gotten changes to their toolkit to not make this, an issue anymore, right? Is that if I want to say, let's say I'm playing single target, Destro, for whatever reason, I come in, I want to build a single target Destro build, right? I don't want Rain of Fire, I don't want Pyrogenics or Cat or anything like that, right? So we go into here, conflict rate, entropy or combustion, whatever you want, backdraft, you can even go Roaring Blaze, EP, and then you have 2 points left to spend here. Now, to unlock the other rows, right? Now, the thing is, you can go in the Channel Demon Fire if you want, which is like fine-ish, but even if you don't play this really anyways in single target anymore outside of your Aberrus tier bonus, and even if you go into Channel Demon Fire, you are left with having to take either Rain of Fire or Havoc / Mayhem in pure single target. There are no single target implications with Mayhem or Havoc or Rain of Fire in single target whatsoever. Now, I understand that Havoc is a large part of Destro's toolkit. It's been part of the core for a long time. These are like baseline early on abilities, but I feel like if I want to make a single target build, I shouldn't be forced in a sense into playing some kind of AoE talent or a Havoc, just cleave based talent, right? Now let's say I pull points out of here in this channel, out of Channel Demon Fire, and just put them in other places. I mean, I'm going to have to go into Havoc in either Pyrogenics, or sorry, Rain of Fire Pyrogenics, or go into Havoc and then either, improved Immolate or Pandemonium Cry Havoc. Now, Immolate's fine. It does some damage. I mean, it's relevant in single target. A longer duration means more cast of spells, but you're still investing just 1 point in Havoc here. Pulling up the actual pure single target build we play right now, we actually go into literally Havoc and then Pandemonium or Cry Havoc, whatever, typically Pandemonium, foregoing improved Immolate, just so you can save a talent point to get into Backlash. I think that is one of the main issues with Destruction early on, is that you're wasting a point in this ability that you want in cleave-based settings, but in single target, you really don't want it at all, right? Now, when it comes to abilities that you could replace that with possibly, one is Flashover. I think Flashover, and this is like an iconic ability that we had, well, I guess iconic in a sense, I don't know. We've had it for a long time. Conflict rate gives a bit more damage and grants you an additional charge of Backdraft. And we're missing that Backdraft charge the entire expansion. Thinking back to Shadowlands, I believe the talents for the first row is Flashover, second row is Entropy, right? Now, you still have Entropy around. For Entropy being right here, you've got Conflict Rate, Entropy here, you've got Backdraft being here. It would make perfect sense to have Conflict Rate right here. You can go into Backdraft, you can go Entropy, you can have Flashover right here where Havoc is. You can bump this down a notch, put it somewhere else in the tree. So you have the option of taking, Conflict Rate, Backdraft, Entropy, and Flashover, which gives you your Conflict Rate, I guess, you could look at it as like a, not a buff tool, but it would empower your conflict rate enough, and having those 2 charges of Backdraft whenever you cast your conflict rate would feel great. Also, a little damage increase, hey, we take that. I think it would go a long way to making Destro feel more fluent, I guess faster in general. If you played Destro recently, without Madness being a thing anymore, it feels glacially slow, even though Madness being gone is probably a better thing overall in the long run. It's still very awkward. So a lot of this roots, or I guess, just stems from Havoc being a required single target talent in a sense, and also needing, I guess the lack of Flashover being a thing here, right? Now, obviously, I want to hit on Rain of Fire, this row leading into Pyrogenics and Cataclysm. We've actually been playing Cataclysm a good bit recently, and plus, in most keys, actually, over Inferno. Inferno seeing some playing like Everbloom, maybe Throne of Tides, large AoE-based dungeons. We've seen a lot of Cata play, partially due to applying multiple Immolates, which means multiple Rift refunds possibly with your new tier bonus. Also, just in general, they buffed Immolate a good bit this patch, and having a way to apply all of your Immolates, all of your dot-based effects quickly feels great. Similar to Shadow Priest, Shadow Crash, applying, I believe, Bap Embrace and Shadow Wear Pain instantly, from what I understand. Even Affliction, having Vile Taint, although it has a longer cooldown than it should, being able to apply all of your agonies quickly feels great. Kata feels great. And unfortunately, we've been in a spot for a long time where you make the choice of either having Cataclysm or Inferno. You can't have both. And it's typically been Inferno for a long time due to Graham Warlock's design, cooldown reduction based around the number of shards you spend, plus just being good in general, heavy AoE-based dungeons. But the changes that came to Graham Warlock's design in 10.2, making your Infernal a baseline 2-minute cooldown, Tyrant a baseline 1-minute cooldown, and your Dark Lair baseline 2 minutes if you ever played it for AF, which you don't. They remove the whenever you spend shards, it reduces the cooldown part of Graham Warlock's design, old Wilfred's, right? Which in a sense makes it better because it's consistent. You can sync it with other 2-minute cooldowns every time, but you typically always had a 2-minute Inferno regardless, whether it was a single target or AoE. But the upside of having that cooldown-based reduction and not just a flat reduction was that in AoE, for example, in like a Brackenhide Hollow, or a spot where you had a lot of consistent AoE pulling packs, just chaining packs, your Infernal would be sub 2 minutes. I've had 1-minute Infernals in Brackenhide, just heavy AoE-based dungeons, where you can't get that anymore, with Graham Warlock's design being a flat, just 60-second reduction, right? So that devalued Inferno, dungeons being a bit less AoE-based in certain spots, devalued Inferno, your tier bonus, like obviously giving Wraith resets with Immolate ticks, added a bit more value to Kata. Immolate buffs being added more value to Kata. Kata itself being buffed, added more value to Kata. But even in a world where you're playing Kata baseline, the other issue with Destro, I feel when it comes to its profile and plus AoE spots, is that unlike in the past, Destro's AoE is just lacking when it comes to burst. Now, with Dimensional Rifts and things, you get a bit more burst if you pop all 3 of them and go Kata and get a refund. Sure, it's okay. But when Destro was good, and when it has been good in Shadowlands, S3, S4, even like in Dragonflight, it's when you have those massive pulls like I just talked about, and you're chaining for a long time. You're making, you're just pulling pack into pack into pack and getting insane rate of fire value, insane Inferno value, all that stuff. And you can just like do damage over the course of a long period of time. You're not like a classic and jump in, pop meta, I-beams, jump around, do 1,000,000 DPS in 1 second. You have to ramp for a long time. So in these lower dungeons where your people are gearing their characters up and running +2s, +3s, even +10s, even like 15s and 20s, where you're not doing a lot of damage unless a pack lives for a long time, Destro's relatively lackluster compared to Demonology with a well-rounded profile, or Affliction that can just throw a bunch of seeds out and do insane burst damage, right? So I think a world where you take Cataclysm, talk about it 1,000,000 times, you just put it like here in the tree and just get rid of Pyrogenics, or likely let's go like, put Kata here, bump Rain of Fire to here, and put Inferno here. Something along these lines. We can have both Inferno or Kata and just make that profile a bit more well-rounded. It still wouldn't like change the burst, I guess, missing burst damage that Destro has a whole lot, but it would make the spec feel so much better. Because you can also feel when you're not playing with Inferno, after playing with it for half a year, or probably a couple of years at this point, coming out of S3 and 4, the lack of shard gen, right? So there's that. Obviously, if I didn't hit on Kata, people will get frustrated. I don't blame them. Kata, having Kata around feels like Vile Taint for Affliction, applying all your agonies at once. It feels like Shadow Crash for Shadow Priest. If there is an ability that should be a part of your baseline profile, like not in your class tree, I think it's like Flame Strike for mages, like literally open your spellbook with no points in your class tree or spec tree, and it's there, it should be Cataclysm for Destro. 100% Cataclysm. So hopefully, in some way, shape, or form, this gets addressed in War Within, and we see where that goes. Another note here I want to hit on is Shadowburn and Conflagration of Chaos. Conflagration is great. It's good. It's played in the single target build at this point, right? It's been a mix like Soulfire and Conflagration for, I don't know, like the whole expansion back and forth, give or take. Conflagration's a little better now. It feels very awkward having Conflagration of Chaos lead into Shadowburn. I feel like if anything, it should be Shadowburn leading into Conflagration. I feel like if anything, it should be Conflagration here leading into Shadowburn, where you're not having to path through an ability that's sort of like a toll you have to pay in a sense to get the better ability, right? I mean, Conflagration is basically, it's pretty much universally applicable, right? Whenever you cast Conflagrate, does more damage, or chance to crit, higher chance to crit, right? Shadowburn is only really useful in spots where you're sniping ads or like PvP, I'm pretty sure. You don't cast it in single target at all if you're, barring the boss literally dying a second later. If you take Conflagration, it's just there. I don't even have it on my bars. I do, like, I don't ever hit it. It's on my bars, right? In single target. And even in spots where ads are dying, like, I feel like it's sort of few and far between. And you don't play this row in Mythic Plus either. You forgo this completely, right? Playing a build more like this. So I feel like Shadowburn is a little bit out of place. It could be Conflagration here into Shadowburn, or just a spot where you can take it without having to like just have that awkwardness. Oh, it's Shadowburn. I have it, but I'm not really playing it in single target. Soulfire is whatever. I'm not a huge fan of it in general. Some people love it, people hate it. I don't know. It is what it is. If you like it, great. If not, I don't know what they can do with it. But there is that. Now, I think for the most part, I mean, like, these abilities down here are interesting. Blasphemies, Purple Infernals are cool. Burn to Ashes is fine. I mean, incinerate damage, buffs, it does damage. It is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of Power Overwhelming. It actually is solid. It just feels a little bland, honestly. I wish getting a stack did refresh duration, but at the same time, it sort of is what it is. Madness is obviously gone. I think in a world where we had the option of either Madness staying around with a longer duration, sorry, if it was a world where we either had Madness staying around with the same duration, or Chaosbringer being a thing, I think Chaosbringer is a better option. I think the best option would have been to make Madness's duration longer, like, I don't know, 8-9 seconds, make it basically irrelevant, just you have it up all the time, and keep that cast time reduction on Chaos Bolt. I would even trade Chaosbringer a bit of damage to Chaos Bolt for a haste, like a cast time reduction, like Bolt had previously. Because casting bolts, especially if you don't have flashover, feels very, very slow. Whether it's a bolt into an incinerate or bolt into bolt, it feels very, very awkward, right? So we'll see where Chaosbringer goes. Rifts and Incarnate are fine. I wish Rift was up here and Embers was here, but that's whatever. I think the last thing I want to hit on for Destro's talents, just Destro in general, well, I guess two things here. One is Fire and Brimstone. I would love a world where we go back to toggleable Fire and Brimstone, how it was in Hellfire Citadel. It was baseline, probably wouldn't happen here, but you could launch Chaos Bolts through Fire and Brimstone. It actually did damage. It didn't reduce the damage to a tenth of what it actually does, literally being 13% and 26%, you know, respectively, with talents and these things here. The damage reduction on Fire and Brimstone is just too much. And I think a way to address Destro's sort of like lack of initial burst AoE in Mythic Plus would be to possibly revert that back to the way Fire and Brimstone was, being able to cast Chaos Bolts on AoE, but at the same time, maybe cap it like 4-ish targets possibly. If you want to spam Rain of Fire and 5+, you can do that. Kata to apply Immolates. I think Fire and Brimstone could be the answer. A different version, less damage reduction, maybe Chaos Bolt AoE, something along those lines. A bit more of a snap kind of burst damage base profile for destruction. But either way, it's an iconic ability, but it's gotten worse and worse every single expansion. It's gotten a larger DR to the cleave damage of Incinerate every single expansion. And I'm pretty sure you can also apply Immolate through it in Hellfire Citadel and WoD. It was certainly Chaos Bolt and Incinerate. I think it was Immolate as well. One to buy OG Fire and Brimstone. Now the last thing I want to hit on here is actually your Infernal. It'll be in every video for Destro Demo and AF. Our CDs just suck. Like, I mean, Infernal, Tyrant, Dark Lair, there are main cooldowns for each spec, and there are abilities that empower them. We have Tyranny for Demonology. Dark Lair had Malevolent Visionary and Grim Reach, and Infernal has Crashing Chaos and Grand Warlocks Design. But outside of these, like, we don't even play this in Mythic Plus, because we can't, because we're playing our Rift bonus. But outside of these, our cooldowns by themselves just suck. Like, I mean, they're cool, but they don't really do anything. Like, Infernal damage overall, it's not good. I mean, this is Demonology, for example. It's not even a demo video. But like, what did Tyrant do in this key? I don't even see it. It's 1% of my damage. Like, our cooldowns are just terrible. Like, they're not good, right? Obviously, taking Crashing Chaos empowers your Chaos Bolts or Rain of Fires, which is not even Infernal based, but still something your Infernal brings with it. To a similar extent, Grand Warlocks Design gives you that 2-minute Infernal, so you get crashing more often, but it feels like it's borrowed power from my cooldowns. I want my cooldowns to be good on their own, right? Infernal Brand, I mean, there's some synergy with Rain of Chaos and Grand Warlocks as well, but unfortunately, it's very, very undertuned and just needs help. When I hit my button, I want it to be cool. I want it to be like, oh, this is sick. Let's rain Hellfire and Brimstone down via Rain of Chaos, via, you know, whatever. I pulled this up actually as well. Lord of Flames, OG ability from your Warlocks, Separus Argyros from Legion, right? Every 10 minutes, your Infernal will summon 3 additional Infernals that last half a minute, basically. Now, would it be a full, you know, half a minute? Probably not. Would it be every 10 minutes? Probably make it every 5, every 6, you know, give you the option of getting it more than once every 10 minutes. But having some kind of like flair added back to our cooldowns, Infernal, Dark Lair, and Tyrant, making them actually do damage again would be really cool. Dark Lair has the borrowed power of like dot extensions for more raptures, all that, give or take, right? Tyrant extends pets and they do damage, but at the same time, it's like they're there, but they're more just like borrowed power for other resources, other sources of damage, if that makes sense, right? I want to hit my buttons and just slam. I want this Infernal to rain Hellfire and Brimstone. I want my Tyrant to come down and swing huge Demon Bolts. I want my Dark Lair to do something. I don't know, it doesn't do anything in years, but either way, I think you sort of get what I'm saying. So Destro has a lot of customizable builds. There's some awkwardness with like Havoc being here early on, the Kata Inferno sync, Conflagration and Shadowburn, Infernal being a bit awkward, a few nodes here and there, Fire and Brimstone, but I feel like it's something salvageable. Some changes can be made here and there to make it more enjoyable. In the end, if the damage is good, you'll play it. If it's not, you won't. But Destro's been the same for a very long time, barring a few changes here and there, which is not a bad thing. I think if the spec stays, for the most part, stays pretty similar to what it's been for a long time, it's probably in a decent spot. But Destro, I think, unfortunately, like in my opinion, not like bashing here, it's gotten less and less exciting to play, and arguably worse and worse, looking at, like, I mean, BFA, I guess Legion to BFA into Shadowlands, barring it being insane S3 and 4 Shadowlands. But like, from a playability standpoint, I don't know if it's more of a, I'm just a little tired of doing the same thing for 10 years, or it's like, maybe it's just lacking a bit more damage profile-wise compared to other specs, like Demonology, or classes like Mage, and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching, guys. It wraps it up. Hopefully I hit on some of the points you might agree with about Destro's, I guess, lack of a handful of things, the talent tree being a little awkward. And I do think that Destro has a lot of really cool functionality. It is pretty customizable, can fit a lot of scenarios, but I don't think it fits any scenario exceptionally well after the changes that it got in 10.2 and some of the buffs and nerfs and just things that have happened over the course of, well, Dragonflight. Now, it's been very similar for multiple expansions. I mean, Chaos Bolt, Immolate, Incinerate, Conflagrate, Rain of Fire, Havoc. It's not really a bad thing, because I think specs that remain in a, I guess, a pretty similar state for multiple expansions typically are in a pretty good spot, I guess most of the time. But I think Destro needs some love, maybe, and more within. So we will, we'll see where it goes. But yeah, like always, WeakCore's add-ons down below. Links to Twitch and Discord if you want them. All for free for you guys. At the same time, before in the video, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. You can also put on Patreon, guys, a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing for you guys, making videos, and yeah, I really appreciate all support. If you're looking at supporting, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. Now, I'm not sure the order of these videos, whether this is number 1, 2, or 3 in the series. I'm doing a video on Demo and AF as well, so either check back in a few days, check the channel if they're already out, if you want to see those. Should be linked, well, just check down below in the channel, and good lord, it's midnight. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. All that being said, if you like the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. Helps out a ton, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.